Thank you so much, Hunter. Incredibly excited, as always, to get to host another Power to Fly session during the summit. I'm very excited to welcome Chrissy and Sandra to the stage. I had gotten a chance to chat with these fabulous, fabulous people last week ahead of today's session. And I think you'll be just as captivated as I am. These are some amazing people we get to talk to today. So Sandra and Chrissy, thank you so much. Welcome to the stage. I do want to give each of y'all a chance to touch on what y'all do at Autodesk. So Chrissy, would you like to kick us off?
Yes. Sorry about that, internet. Hi, everybody. I'm Chrissy Van Nugent, and I am the Chief of Staff of the ESG and Impact team at Autodesk. And I joined that team about a year ago, but I've been at Autodesk for 3 years. And first joined the Brand and Impact team over there, which is a kind of combination of the brand marketing communications team and also the sustainability and the foundation team. But then due to a reorg, the impact team kind of left that org. And I was like, you know what? Just really passionate about all the work that this group does in terms of sustainability, foundation, philanthropy, product innovations, customer interactions. And so I was able to thankfully follow that group over to their new organization. And now I am the chief of staff. And so I know chief of staff is kind of a big term, but basically I'm just helping the team do their very best work and supporting them in a whole matter of ways, particularly in strategic planning and in execution.
How many of these do I do a week and I still lose my mute button at least once a session? Thank you for your patience. No, that's wonderful, Chrissy. Thank you for introducing yourself. Sandra, would you like to do the same? Let people know, what you do at Autodesk. Ooh, I don't know if anybody else, it sounds like I might have lost your audio.
Yeah, sounds like that too.
Yeah. Okay, Sandra, we'll give you a minute and we'll take our first question to Chrissy, but then we'll come right back to you. Don't panic, just chill. We got you, girl. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how you ended up at Autodesk. When you were doing your job search, obviously there's a lot of information that competes and you try and figure out where's going to be your next good fit. What was your journey like to get to Autodesk, Chrissy?
Yeah, so funny enough, Autodesk was actually a customer of the company that I used to work at. I used to work at a marketing technology platform called Rollworks, and I was the chief of staff to the president over there. And so we had big accounts, strategic accounts, and Autodesk was actually one of them using our platform for account-based marketing. So I knew about Autodesk before. But kind of here we are, summer of 2020, August 2020 or July 2020, and everybody's working remote. And I'm just sitting at my computer at my house being like, okay, there's protests happening. There's folks that are getting sick globally and dying. Our planet is warming at an alarming rate. What is what I'm doing from 9 to 5 actually having a positive impact on the world? And I kind of just realized that what I was doing and the company I was working for, I couldn't confidently say that account-based marketing was having a positive societal impact. So even though I was on track to become VP of operations in like 2 months at that organization, I was like, I told my boss that next day, I said, I'm sorry, I need to go, I need to pursue something else. And luckily, Autodesk had this fantastic role open that I mentioned before, the chief of staff to the Brand and Impact org, which really married my background in marketing and communications to my newfound kind of interest and passion for sustainability and philanthropy. So it was just really fortuitous. And I think luck, I want to say a little bit of fate. And I joined Autodesk in August of 2020.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Sandra, how about you? Would you let us in on, what your Autodesk journey has been like?
It wasn't that, oh my God, I'm hearing echo.
Loud and clear for us, so don't worry.
I've worked in like radio for a little while and this is just weird. So I am I'm going to take off my headphones first, so I won't be able to hear you. I'm a content experience designer at Autodesk. I write documentation. It's not super, forward customer facing or anything like that. It's just one of those things where You try to help the customer as much as you can. And my philosophy of life is that I use to be in support. And for me, a good documentation goes a long way. And I work on the EMS products, specifically SDK documentation, which is a documentation everyone forgets about sometimes, but developers are people too, and they need documentation. So that's, the Autodesk is the first large company I've been at, to be very honest. I used to work at very small companies, and so it's been a bit of a change, but it's been a change in a good way, just because there's so many more people and you don't end up being the one different one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different people, so it's nice. It's kind of nice. I'm gonna put back on my headphones and I won't be able to say anything, so just let you know.
That's all right. It's okay. We'll treat it like a call and response. All right. So let's talk about some of the Pride Month related events that Autodesk has planned. What does it look like to celebrate Pride at Autodesk? Sandra, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I mean, oh yeah. So I was only with Autodesk for a year before the pandemic hit. And before the pandemic hit, it was really great. It was a big emphasis on it. There were pamphlets that were put around the office explaining gender identities and sexualities, which I think was really nice because you don't actually want to go around explaining to people what things are all the time. Yeah. So that was really nice, and I thought it was a really good good initiative. And it wasn't even the Pride Committee was doing it at the time. It was like the Pride Committee and the Social Committee. So it was like everybody. So you didn't feel like it was a burden upon, the local LGBT community to have to do this. And then there were the global Pride events, and those were really cool too. Then the pandemic hit, and my local Pride ERG kind of fell apart. But we relied a bit on the Montreal ERG. So I'm in Toronto. Ours fell apart a bit. The one in Montreal kind of stayed together, and I helped with them. And well, I didn't help. I did very little. I'm just gonna be very honest. I just advertised our event. We did put together a joint event with us, where we had mixology, like non-alcoholic mixology, and it was really nice. It was just a way to more or less connect and to talk. And that was really good because we were all really lonely. But the other thing that happened during the pandemic was that because we were all at home, I don't know how we managed to all find each other, but somehow we were all in Slack and we all sort of found the Pride Slack network, the Pride Slack channel. And that's how we all connected. And that's how I also connected with the trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people because they had their own Slack channel. And it was nice to actually connect with people that way. So it was sort of like an organic thing. And I'm gonna put my headphones back on and stop talking.
You're good. Chrissy, how is it from your perspective? Obviously, you're not based in Canada. So what does Pride Month, what do the celebrations look like, south of the border?
Yeah, no, it's super interesting to hear kind of the differences globally. I love that about Autodesk, that there's like a global presence and also a global effort to celebrate Pride. It's just so great to see. Sandra talked about that Slack channel that we have, our Autodesk Pride ERG Slack channel. And there's just pictures that people in APAC are posting, pictures in people in Montreal, and it's in the UK, EMEA. It's a great culture builder and sense of belonging that you can feel virtually, which I think is a hard thing to do. But I'm based in SF. And Pride is really fun in San Francisco. It almost feels like Pride is a year-round thing there, which is why I live there. And I think Autodesk does a really great job, or we have been recently, of trying to bring people more together, like in person, in the safely and in the office. And so for me, I'm really excited about some of the things that the company has planned for next week in particular, or sorry, no, this week and next week. There's like in-person sip-in chats that we have in our office where we've just a little bit of a mixer going on. There's been some virtual drag shows happening. There have also been some fireside chats with organizations that and nonprofits that support the LGBTQ plus community. So there's like awareness, education, building for allies, which I think is super important. There's really like a whole host of things that the ERG does during Pride Month, but I do love the fact that there is activity in that ERG all year.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think it's a good thing to mention, or to highlight, Sandra, what you had said earlier, is that these events going on, and not just the LGBTQ or the Pride ERGs, you know what I mean? Like, it's not all of the work for this event does not just fall on the ERG itself. Because you're right, these are great places to find support, but also nobody wants to throw their own surprise party, y'all. Like, that's just not cool to like make someone do. So like, I really think that it's an important thing to note that, it's not just from the grassroots. It's not just something that's important to the employees, and so it continues. It's obviously something that's important from the top down as well. So I think that's really, really cool. All right, we did have some great questions in the chat that are coming in here. So I want to try and touch on some of those. One of the things that we had wanted to talk to y'all about is some of the ways that the Autodesk Pride Network challenges members to grow. So Sandra, would you like to tell us about the Pride Network, or maybe Chrissy, you'd like to? Okay.
You want me to go first, Sandra?
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha. We'll just have to do our own sign language. Yes, so I like, in terms of the network challenging folks to grow, I'll bring it back to one of the things that Sandra had talked about. I feel like the Pride Network does a really good job of bringing really current and kind of significant topics that are relevant to the LGBTQ community to the forefront. So, as you know, there is a slew of anti-trans legislation happening across the country. Also, it's politics season in terms of, presidential running. There's also a lot that we do in philanthropy that we need to talk about in relation to what our company supports and kind of how we show up in that world, which is a little bit close to the work that my team does. And so there's just all these topics that I think are around on the day-to-day basis. And that I love the fact that the Pride Network ERG just builds a dialogue for that, whether that's in the Slack channel, or I know folks in the network are reaching out to executives across Autodesk to ask what their thoughts are and how they would like communicate their support, all the way up to our CEO, Andrew Anagnost. So there's that where it's challenging us to really stay on top of what's happening to our community, and to be talking about it, and to be kind of like growing together, I think is one of the ways that I see that happening.
I love that. Sandra, I want to talk to you a little bit about how Autodesk makes you feel empowered and supported to be your full self at work. I had a conversation about this with a family member, extended family member, a couple weeks ago, and was trying to get them to understand, the perspective of somebody who might not be able to bring their full selves to work. So if you are among the, let's say, non-community members, and are somewhat confused by this, something I do want you to like keep in mind is, think about every time you go into work or you talk to your colleagues and you talk about what you did that weekend, right? Like, you took your kids to a soccer tournament, or you and your partner went to Home Depot and you had a bunch of home projects and blah, blah, blah. Now think about all of those times and realize that you cannot say anything about who your partner is, what your relationship is, their gender, literally none of it. So you can't talk about any of that. So when we're talking about these things and bringing your full selves to work, think of it more in those terms in case you are outside of the community and a little bit confused or unsure about what we're talking about. Now that we've got that kind of baseline set here, I want to know, Sandra, from you first, what are some of the ways that Autodesk is supporting you, is making it possible and not even just possible, welcomed and encouraged to bring your full self to work?
So, like I said, like I used to work at like a small company, and I used to have to edit my life story out for them, and it was really, really stressful. And when I got to Autodesk, I did the same thing. I like edited out my life a bit until I realized, and I don't even know what Autodesk did exactly, but I realized that I didn't have to do that anymore. Like, I could just be myself and just say that I am who I am. The whole gender thing took a bit longer because, and I still don't discuss that too much with my coworkers, except for mentioning the fact, like having my pronouns there. The fact that a lot of people have their pronouns listed actually helps a lot, because it just makes you feel like you've got at least some allies, that people will understand that this is not a political thing. Pronouns are not a political thing. Pronouns are just a nice cursory gesture. Like, it just helps you interact with people a lot easier if you know how to address them.
Yeah.
In the olden days, you used to put Mr. or Ms., Mrs. or Ms., and that's explained to you how to address people, doctor, all these things. And the pronouns are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it was just one of those things where when I was there, I didn't feel like I had to hide as much. And I think the fact that there was a Pride ERG, the fact that there was visibility, that made all the difference. It's different than when you're in a small company and you're the only one who isn't straight and who isn't cis.
Yeah.
And you feel kind of out of it, and you feel like, you have to do that little game where you drop hints to see if the person's going to respond properly. And at Autodesk, I don't feel I have to do it. I mean, I do it a little bit. I am in like the engineering section, so I still do it a little bit, but I don't feel I have to do it as much. I feel that even if I don't do it and I let something slip, that the end of the world won't happen. It'll still be okay. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it can be really hard to quantify like what makes you feel okay or feel safe in a situation. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people outside the community maybe don't think of, right? Is that idea of the uncertainty. It doesn't matter if it's a safe environment. If it's uncertain, then the mental effort, the work, all of the struggle in the background is going to happen anyway. So I love this idea that it wasn't necessarily one single thing. You were just like, oh, I don't have to do that here. I think that's wonderful. Chrissy, how about you? We did have a really good question in the chat here. This person wanted to know what colleagues could do to make you feel that sense of belonging. So let's talk about that. When it comes to interactions with your coworkers, are there things that help or things that don't help?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I touch on that, Meg, do you mind if I just speak a little bit to, I want to just like double down on what Sandra said around the culture of Autodesk, and like what she said is so poignant around like coming to Autodesk and just not knowing what it was, but being able to feel welcome and just be able to like be yourself. And I know exactly what that feels like. And I think when I thought about it a little bit in preparation for this talk, it's just, I think the culture has this really unique sense of humility and groundedness, because there's a lot of folks who have to work on really meaty problems, and our product is really broad and serves a whole host of uses. And there's just a lot of smart folks at the company, but like our CEO is, I think, a former NASA employee, but no one really kind of, I think, is flaunting the intelligence. It's actually, we celebrate difference and divergence at Autodesk. And so I think that's a big reason for why I feel truly comfortable for the first time really in my career to show up as my authentic self. So that, I just wanted to add to that. The culture is fantastic at Autodesk. But to answer your question around what can colleagues specifically do to make folks part of the LGBT community feel a sense of belonging, it's a little bit to what Sandra said around inviting us into those conversations that, historically queer folks weren't really able to participate in, those types of activities, or really like collegiate bonding. And I feel personally like I've really been able to do this most recently on the team that I joined. Shout out to the ESG and Impact team if they're on the call. Love you guys. They're an amazing team that I just think always makes me feel welcome. And we do this really fun kind of cultural norm where we share kind of personal milestones in our our team Slack channel. And so when I got married last year, I just, I felt super safe posting pictures of my wife and I in our wedding in our Slack channel. And I just for the first time, I felt an overwhelming sense of support and just like care from a community that, I am one of the few queer people a part of that community. And so just being able to normalize the fact that, two women were getting married, and there's a picture of that along with all the other pictures of dogs and people taking trips. It was normalizing. And I think that's really all we want, is just that.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it, it really does highlight, there's a lot of other people outside the community who would never even consider that, right? You got married, you want to show it off. Like allegedly you like the person you married, so you want to show them off too. So, I think that that's really, it is really important to think of these things when it comes to putting yourself in the shoes of the people that you want to support, right? Sandra, what about you? Is there anything that your colleagues either have been doing or could do to really encourage that sense of belonging for you or for other people within the LGBTQ?
I was waiting for somebody to say the LGBTQ.
Somebody had to, y'all. It's been in my head for 3 weeks. Like it had to be said.
So I work in like a little very niche. I work with the designers and the writers, and they're a very eccentric group. Like I should kind of say eccentric. They're an interesting group, and there's also like little things, and they're very open because they're writers. There's theater people. There's people from all kinds of, previous job experience are in there, and so they're really open. They're very calm and they're very cool, and just gonna shout out to the EMS CXD team here. So hi. Also to the foundation team. Hi, you guys. If you're here, they're all men on my team. But as I was telling somebody the other day, so I have this one engineering team, this one Scrum team. They're all ostensibly cis men, and I think they're all straight. I don't know. We don't talk about it really. It's not something you just discuss. But they did at one point say, they say we use the word guys all the time. Is this okay with you? And it was like literally the first time anybody had ever said this to me.
That's so
And I was
nice.
like, that's really nice. Thank you. I don't mind, but thank you for asking. And it's little things like that that really make, I know it sounds nuts, but it's little things like that that really make the difference. It's little things like not having that weird pause when you tell people who you've dated or tell people, who your current celebrity crush is. It's like, just don't have that weird pause. Don't have that weird pause. It's like, you can have the weird exclamation mark, maybe as like you have recognition. And that's happened to me. It's like, oh, hello. But not have that weird pause. It's little
like
things like that.
It's like you watch somebody's brain like sort of recalibrate.
Yeah.
Like they thought they knew like 3 steps ahead where this conversation was going, and now they have to like kind of reorient themselves a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is like a bigger conversation. Like individuals can just make you feel more comfortable just by being nice people. I mean, it's not hard.
Yeah.
It's just be nice, be accepting.
Yeah.
There's a bigger conversation in that. And I remember having a conversation with a coworker when we got at one point pronoun stickers for our badges. Sorry, I'm going long. But we had a whole conversation about gender identity and pronouns and stuff like that. And he was really open to it. And that's like another thing. You should just be open to the ideas and try to deconstruct yourself a bit. Because that's the bigger thing to making people feel at home in their own skin and at work and make them feel like, they're not hiding everything, is to just deconstruct this. I mean, I've had to deconstruct because, I was born in the 70s and, so I know it's not easy, but it's something that I think goes a long way.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this is something we talked about in an earlier session. Yeah. No, that was a good one though. I love this. Okay, we have 5 minutes left, and I know we want to leave a little bit of buffer time here. So my last question is, when people from within the LGBTQ community are evaluating whether to work for a new org, what questions do you think they should ask themselves as well as the company that they're interviewing with? Chrissy, let's go to you first, and then Sandra, you'll wrap up.
Awesome. Yeah, I love this question. I just think it's such a helpful thing for folks in this community to be talking about and to really be building on the knowledge base for. So for me, there's, I think, really just two main questions. The first, there's definitely more, but two are top of mind for me. The first is how do they actually show up in supporting the LGBTQ plus community? How do they show up? And I'm not just talking about, changing that rainbow logo once a year, maybe throwing a couple fun parties here and there. It's like, what are the benefits that are going to help queer people be able to live a normal life? For example, Autodesk has this Make a Family benefit that currently my wife and I are using to have a family. And I wouldn't be able to do this without it. And it's just, so there's those kinds of things, the benefits, Are there policies, are there cultural norms that the company is really instilling and implementing to show up and take action for the LGBTQ plus community? So that's a big one. Make sure they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
Yeah.
And then the second, I always like to ask this question too, or at least do my own little research about it, is does the company have, representation in, or at least value the visibility of queer people? And so I think it's always a great sign if there are openly out people in leadership positions, or if not, are there people in leadership positions that are pretty, like, very vocal and active allies to this community?
Yeah.
Maybe being a sponsor for the Pride ERG, or they're actively kind of asking, being curious in the community and asking for ways that they can support, showing up to events like this one, that and sponsoring events like this one. So I think yeah, representation is great, and that's what we strive for. But at least the value in visibility for the queer community is what matters to me.
I like that. Sandra, do you have any other questions that you ask yourself, or that you have asked employers in the past?
For me, it's hard. Like when I'm in, I've interviewed a lot. I've had like 4 jobs before this, and it was always hard to try to ask those questions because I think technically you're not allowed to talk about that in a job interview. So you don't have a way to really get a sense. And I feel that it's in that interview that you usually get a sense of how people are. So you have to guess. And I would say that when you're taking the tour of the office, that's when you can get a really good feel for what the place is like. If I would say that if the people look happy and if the people look calm and relaxed, it's a good sign that in general, everybody feels comfortable with each other. And that's what I got when I did the tour of Autodesk. That's one of the first times I walked around the office and I was like, oh, nobody looks a little yeah. The other thing is, I would say, I know glass door sounds like a bad idea, but sometimes you can get to see the glass door ratings and stuff like that, and that can be useful sometimes. Just see why people left.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And that really does highlight something that we try and talk about in these chats, especially in a lot of the chat and learns I host outside of the summit, is this idea that you are interviewing the company just as much as they are interviewing you. So I love that recognition of the fact that how the impression that they are making in your eyes is just as important as the impression you are making, for them. So yeah, love this conversation. I'm so sorry we are almost at time, but Chrissy and Sandra, both of you, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us. It's been wonderful to chat with you both, and I really hope that we get to do this again soon. Hunter, thank you. Hunter, turning it over to you so we don't run over time. Sorry.